All right. Sorry, guys. Let me practice speaking real quick. All right, guys. Hello. It's been a long day. It's been a long day, so I'm going to treat myself. There is a particularly interesting thing to me about conservative commentary, and that's when conservatives try to engage with popular culture, right? Because it's a way for them to humanize themselves, right? Like if Ben Shapiro is a Star Wars nerd, he might seem less of a pseudo fascist, racist, or whatever. He'll seem less threatening, right? We can relate to that. Um, but they cannot see anything um, without seeing it through the prism of their own views, of their own strictly conservative views. Meaning, if there is kind of a cultural depiction going on here, whether it be in movies, books, TVs, if that piece of media is kind of, if it's about something really, they try to divide things along liberal or conservative lines in their analysis of that film. Meaning, it's not just is this film good? Is it, you know, does it have interesting themes? Is it well thought out? There's the added layer of, well, it attacks my viewpoint, so I don't like it, but it actually validates my viewpoint, so I do. So, best example for me is when our boy Ben was ranking the Star Wars films, and he said that what was it? Attack of the Clones was underrated. He defended Attack of the Clones, widely regarded as one of the worst movies pretty much of all time. And the reason he defended it, and this is going to sound so weird, is because Count Dooku was a free trade libertarian. He said he thought it was cool that Count Dooku was a free trade libertarian. And this is Ben saying these words. I'm not twisting anything here. This is what he said. Granted, there are other reasons he liked the movie, but that was definitely that was a part of it for him, which is baffling because Count Dooku is the villain, right? Maybe Ben didn't even realize that. Maybe Ben didn't realize that Count Dooku was the villain, and the whole movie was just a defense of free trade libertarian thought. And speaking of the Shapiros, we're going to check in with classically Abby, of course, Ben Shapiro's younger sister. She has made a video, 5 chick flicks that are accidentally conservative. These movies reveal conservative truths. Someday we'll talk about the weird conservative trend of uh, putting random words in all caps, but not today. Not today. So, this is an interesting thing, right? This whole title reveals already some truths on Abby's part. First off, a chick flick is kind of a gross term to me because it's usually applied to any movie that deals with romance, and there's no reason to divide romantic movies along gender lines. Like guys like romance, guys can be happy to engage in romance in movies and in media. I get that certain movies are definitely like targeted to women. So I guess it depends on what these movies are, but I'm guessing that a lot of them are going to simply be romance films. But the more important thing here is that obviously there is the conservative narrative that Hollywood and kind of American culture are like our cultural institutions have been infiltrated by cultural Marxists, far leftist radicals. They've been complaining about this forever. I mean, go back to the 1940s and 50s. The government literally persecuted Hollywood writers and actors for their supposed communist ties, right? So this has been going on for a long time, but Abby has found some films that she believes validates her conservative viewpoints. But how do you reconcile that with the other narrative? Well, it's accidental. So we'll see how accidental this is, or how conservative it really is. Because so far with Abby, she's been taking really basic tenets of American life and chalking that up to conservative. Only a conservative views marriage as important. Only a conservative loves America and will celebrate America. So let's see if that trend continues.
Hello, beautiful ladies, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about 5 chick flicks that are accidentally conservative. So I've been wanting to start a series for a while now that would talk about movies that we watch that accidentally or maybe on purpose have conservative messages, because so much of what we're watching nowadays is not that. It's the exact opposite of that actually. And I've also wanted to do a video about how what we're watching makes us feel more alone, because we are seeing a portrayal of the world that is very, very liberal, and it makes us feel like, are we alone here? Is there anyone else who thinks like me? There are definitely other people who think like you, but
Look, there are conservative films and television shows. The problem is that they're usually really bad, so they get relegated to like the Hallmark Channel, like uh discount bins at Walmart. You know, at best you have some action movies like some of the Rambo movies or whatever. But here's another thing to note, right? Hollywood is a capitalist, neoliberal institution, meaning it is driven by one thing, the profit motive. So it is going to promote values that align the most, or at least they think it aligns the most, with popular trends and where the Overton window is, basically. So in the 80s, you had a plethora of conservative content, of conservative media. That show that Michael J. Fox was on, what was it? Was it not not Family Matters? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? But like Red Dawn, going back to the action movies. I mean, almost all of those movies are promoting like the military, the CIA, FBI, and that was the 80s when obviously we were going through the Reagan Revolution. But now, post Bush, post Obama, the Overton window is definitely shifting left socially, and that's what Hollywood sees, and that's what it goes for. I I don't want to say this, but I seriously doubt that Get Out would have been made had the studios not seen the marketability there. I think that was a right time, right place situation. Now that was a low budget movie, so it had a better chance, but it's a right time and place sort of thing.
the media
Let me
and
look at that
movies
dislike.
are not going to show you that. But before I do that video, I thought it would be fun to start a series where I do different genres of movies that accidentally have conservative messages. That the story of the movie sort of provides an insight that shows a conservative truth. And that's a funny thing that is probably unintentional most of the time.
A conservative truth is pretty funny in and of itself. Just those two words put together, I don't know, kind of makes me chuckle.
But it's something that we can watch and say, huh, that is a message that I wasn't actually expecting, and probably they didn't realize how conservative it was in the moment. Now, do directors and does Hollywood try and put in conservative messages into their movies? No.
No.
Very, very rarely does that happen. It does happen sometimes.
I mean, come on, man. Like she at least admits that it does happen sometimes, right? But when it does happen, there's no attempt to buy Hollywood to stop it. Remember the Benghazi movie by Michael Bay starring John Krasinski? That movie that was about the most politicized event of the Obama administration, clearly it was taking the side of the Republicans, of the right wing, when it portrayed the events of that film. That was a huge movie with a huge marketing campaign, and it came out while Obama was president.
but it's very, very rare. But there are times where a story, a romance, can sort of have a conservative message without them even meaning it. So I thought it would be fun to go through 5 chick flicks that have a conservative message accidentally. So let's get into it. The first movie I want to talk about is A Walk to Remember. So you probably have seen this movie. It was all the rage in the early 2000s, and it is a great movie. I really love it. I also think that this one may have actually been on purpose, the conservative message.
Let's just look that up. A night, not a walk to remember, a night to remember is about the Titanic. All right, all right. A Walk to Remember, starring Mandy Moore. Oh, decent IMDb, but trash Rotten Tomatoes. Trash because of the liberal bias in movie review. Wait, it's based off a Nicholas Sparks novel. It was probably intentional. It was probably intentional to promote traditional heteronormative relationships. I don't know. I mean, that Nicholas Sparks has such a radical record. Oh my god. Okay. So far, so good. Is that my right tab? Yeah.
Because it is telling the story of a religious girl in a positive light. It is a beautiful movie. I will say that I will probably have spoilers throughout this video, so if you don't want to hear those, I don't know if I would watch this. But in A Walk to Remember, the idea is that there is a religious girl who's kind of an outcast. She isn't popular. She doesn't really fit in. And then there's the cool guy who fits in but is kind of a scoundrel, not a good guy. And the two of them meet.
If they used the word scoundrel in the movie, it's most definitely conservative. That was your first warning.
He's been told he has to be in the school play to make up for the bad things that he's done. What? And they end up, of course, falling in love, even though she tells him at the beginning not to. Now, here's the spoiler. The spoiler is that she has leukemia, and so she didn't want him to fall in love with her.
Oh my god. Somebody in a Nicholas Sparks novel got leukemia? Dude, if you're a woman in a Nicholas Sparks novel, this goes for Disney movies too. Run, lock yourself in the bunker. Well, he'll just give you leukemia, I guess. Nicholas Sparks is a vengeful god who wreaks havoc on the lives of these innocent women he puts into his stories.
Because she didn't want to break his heart when he found out that she was dying of cancer. And it is very, very moving. The reason this movie has a conservative message is because this movie is what I would call the opposite of Grease. In Grease, the good girl turns bad for the bad guy. In A Walk to Remember, the bad guy turns good for the good girl. And I love this movie because it does have a conservative message that people can be redeemed, people can be better, and that the two of them are going to be better together. And then when they do get married at the end, I found that so...
So it's conservative because it shows that people can be redeemed. Okay. So when it comes to prison reform, right? Which side of the aisle is saying that we should focus more on rehabilitation, and that we can't ruin people's lives, that people deserve the chance to be redeemed or to be rehabilitated? And then which side of the aisle says no, we need law and order, we have to take a hard discipline approach, advocate the death penalty, put them in jail, let them rot, throw away the key? Which side of the aisle seems to be more in favor of redemption there? Now, if you're talking about redemption, like, oh, he can become a typical waspy Christian husband, a hubby, okay, I just wish we would define our terms more carefully here.
romantic, that they value marriage even in the short term, that even in the short term you don't leave it behind. And so this movie, I think, actually meant to have a conservative message. It is one of my favorites. I think they do an incredible job of telling this story, of having the main character who is religious be sympathetic. That very rarely happens in films, so I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And of course, like I said, they make each other better, and it does end in marriage. Another good comparison for this movie is something called Sweet November, which is with Charlize Theron and Keanu Reeves. And it's in a way very similar because she is a character who meets this bad guy. She's kind of a kooky, out there kind of fun hippie woman, and she meets him and she says, I just want to spend November with you. We're going to spend all of November together. And he doesn't know why it has to end, and it's because she also is dying of cancer. And so in that movie, that version of things, she kind of flits from man to man because she's dying and that's what she's chosen to do. Whereas in A Walk to Remember, her cancer isn't an excuse for her to go around acting however she wants. She's still very godly, even in the face of a horrible, horrible struggle. Whereas in Sweet November, she kind of leaves men behind constantly, just pursuing this initial flutter of love over and over with new.
Using cancer as an excuse to get dick. Why hasn't anybody thought of that before? I mean, ladies, or, fellas, if y'all get cancer, there's a silver lining at least. You can't be judged if you go out and get dick. You have an excuse.
New people. And of course, we can't sit in judgment on somebody who's going through something like that. Not at all. But just in comparison within these two movies, it's interesting and a conservative message to see that even when someone is going through a terrible time and terrible hardship, she's still godly, she does improve someone else's life, and she does end up married at the end. So that is the first entry in our accidental.
Why is that necessarily conservative? It really depends on how her religion informs her values, or, what her values are. There was a Terrence Malick movie about this it was based on a real story. This Austrian farmer back in the 30s who was executed because he refused to swear an oath of loyalty to Hitler, right? And his faith was a huge part of that decision. Was that a secret, accidentally conservative story? Oh, I forgot. The left are actually the real fascists. Yes, never mind. I just got confused there for a second.
Conservative chick flicks. Next up, let's talk about two films. I'm kind of bundling them into one because they came out the same year and they were the same exact concept. So it was Friends with Benefits and No Strings Attached. Neither one of these movies do I recommend. Neither one of these movies should you watch. I do not think that they are very good movies, but they do accidentally have a good message, which is, if you are going to engage in sex with someone, you will have feelings for them. You can't divide sex and relationship. It's not a good idea. Friends with Benefits doesn't work. No Strings Attached doesn't work either.
That's the point of both films. That is the explicit message of both of those films. Literally could not be more obvious. Like, you could tell that would be the point of the story just watching the trailer. Looking at the poster, having seen a romantic comedy before, you would know that the message of that film, those films, is that sex will complicate things and that you will inevitably get feelings with the other person. That is like watching Spider-Man and saying, it was fun, but it actually had an accidental message about responsibility. The idea that you have to use power responsibly. So it accidentally had a good message. So that's cool. Like, that is what you sound like. What, Abby? Abby, you don't have to be conservative to think that, to at least kind of use that as a general rule of thumb, I guess. I mean, liberals are hesitant to make kind of blanket statements about, like, oh, if you do this, this will certainly happen to you. Like, you cannot engage in this behavior because it will hurt you. We are uncomfortable using those blanket statements because, everybody is an individual that will have their own experiences. But I mean, I certainly know liberals that would conduct themselves that way. Liberals who themselves believe, I don't want to get tangled up in a friends with benefits situation because that would just complicate things, right? You know, that's how they would conduct themselves. So I guess you're saying, well, that is still inherently a conservative position, but I don't see anything at least inherently anti-liberal about that idea. I mean, when it comes to relationships, that's not exactly a partisan thing. Like that's an individual's choice. So, okay, if you want to nab that, if you want to nab the anti-friends with benefits um, kind of viewpoint and plant it firmly in the conservative camp, okay. I mean, that certainly doesn't make the movie conservative. It doesn't make any one individual person conservative if they feel that way.
And so it is funny because in both of those movies, they try to hook up just without any feelings, and then of course they end up together. It's a romantic comedy. But the fact of the matter is, in real life, that is also the case. If you start hooking up with someone, you will have feelings for them. And this whole feminist empowerment idea that you can have sex with whoever you want, no matter when you want, and you won't catch feelings, and it'll be fun for you, and it's just good for you to embrace your sexuality, that doesn't really happen. Friends with benefits is never a good idea.
She had to make it about feminism. She had to make it all about feminist empowerment and what she believes that means. Look, man, I have never run into any feminist school of thought like that promotes and encourages the act of sleeping around, that tells people to do that, right? There's a very different thing between detoxifying something and destigmatizing something and then promoting it. Again, feminism is about treating women as autonomous beings like we're talking about like some kind of sciencey thing here. Autonomous people, independent people who should be free to make their own choices, who can consent to do whatever they want with their own personal life, right? That they are granted the same liberties that men are. Men get to decide what they do with their bodies, how they express themselves sexually. Women should have exactly the same rights. There is no school of thought there that says that sleeping around is inherently good, that it is inherently something that you should do, that means you are empowered as a woman. If, let's say, you have a situation where a woman is dating a guy and he's pressuring her to sleep with him. Maybe she doesn't even, if she wants to wait until marriage, but the guy is pressuring her, the feminist would come to that woman's defense and say, this is her body. She gets to decide, nobody else. This is purely her decision. If she wants to wait, she has every right to wait. A feminist would argue that. You may not believe that. But honestly, the only reason you might think feminists promote the idea of sleeping around is because people like you are always trying to shame people. So we have to come to people's defense and say, there's nothing wrong with this. You shouldn't judge them. And you hear that as, oh my God, they think everybody just needs to sleep around. Feminists.
Idea. One person or the other is going to have more feelings than the other. That's not a friendship that can usually survive. Once you add sex to a friendship, it's no longer a friendship. There's a whole other layer of confusion there, and it should not be taken lightly at all. And these two movies accidentally are proponents for, if you're gonna have sex with someone, you can't just have sex with them. You can't have sex with someone with no strings attached. It just doesn't exist. Sex is something that is very emotional. It's not just physical. We shouldn't treat it as physical for a million reasons. We've talked about many of them on my channel, but
not an ad.
The story we haven't.
Get out of here, Frame.io. I'm already subscribed to Frame.io. Whatever.
But in this case, it doesn't actually exist without one or both of you wanting more. So even though these movies are not things I would recommend, they accidentally have a very conservative message.
Using female empowerment one more time
as an excuse to have sex with whoever you want is not actually going to go that well for you. Just because sex and emotions go hand in hand, sex does not exist in a vacuum. And I think that is the point here. Number 3.
Now, okay. I'm not backpedaling, but let's add some nuance in here. Is sex something that you should take lightly, as in you should act as if it will never have any consequences? No, nobody would think that. There's always something that's going to happen due to you engaging in that. First off, you always need to be responsible, right? But going back to what you said, that it doesn't come out of a vacuum. Well, no, but you can be physically attracted to a person, um, and that can translate to you wanting to have a casual hookup or encounter with that person. I mean, that can happen. There's a reason why you guys are always saying, "Hey, wait until marriage, y'all." Like, if you didn't believe that people were horny as fuck, like deep down in their hearts, you wouldn't feel the need to tell people to wait, you know, or tell people not to casually sleep around. Obviously, it can come out of physical desires. I guess you're saying, well, that is never a good thing. Well, it's still just a part of human nature that, you know, you have to deal with in one way or another.
Three is Miscongeniality. I love this movie. I think I watched this movie 100 times growing up. I loved this movie. I loved the home makeover. I liked that she was a cop and she was undercover, and that also she was going to be in a pageant. That was so much fun. But the accidentally conservative message in this movie is that once Sandra Bullock's character embraces her femininity, she's so much happier. She starts making friends. She starts realizing how feminine she is. She attracts the guy that she's going to end up with. And she, before that, was living alone, was not taking care of herself as a woman, was really only engaging with that tomboyish side of herself, which, by the way, she maintains throughout the film, and I think is very important. If that's your personality, of course, still be
Whoa. Okay, wait, I missed something. Did she just... Let's go back a little bit. I'm sorry, y'all. Could I have heard that right?
throughout the film, and I think is very important. If that's your personality, not taking care of herself as a woman, was really only engaging with that tomboyish side of herself, which, by the way, she maintains throughout the film, and I think is very important. If that's your personality.
Okay, yeah, so she completely contradicts herself. How can... So if she's still a tomboy, how does she still embrace... Maybe she embraces the feminine side more, but you're saying it's not like she abandons her tomboyish traits for a completely feminine identity makeover. She just incorporates more femininity into that, I suppose. I mean, okay, do you not see the contradiction there? Ugh. Okay, gonna do something mean here, y'all. Just gonna take a quick snapshot. There you go. All right, explain yourself, Abby.
Of course, still be a tomboy, still engage with that, but once she starts really embracing her femininity throughout the movie, talking to other women, embracing her beauty, embracing her femininity throughout the film, you can see...
Nah, man, if you're a feminist, you gotta be fucking ugly. You cannot walk into a feminist club or a meeting where, you know, wearing a nice dress or makeup. I tried, and they kicked me out. You gotta be fucking ugly.
Her character grow. She goes from somebody who was alone and is lonely and doesn't take care of herself to a woman who has made all of these friends, who is the most friendly woman there. She's Miscongeniality, and who also has maintained her identity through it. And I think that's a really good lesson, that you can be a strong woman and still be feminine. You can be an empowered woman in our sense of the word, right? In conservative women's sense of the word, where you're strong and independent. You can be that and also be feminine. And if you lack the feminine side of things, you're not really taking care of yourself. And
that is a feminist message. I really hate to break it to you. The idea that you can be feminine, that you can be a woman, and not be ashamed of your womanhood, and still work in a traditionally male-dominated space, that's feminism. That sounds feminist to me. Absolutely. Is it just because she's more feminine? Is it because she puts on a dress or something and gets together with a guy? Is this how desperate the cultural right is? That, I mean, are they trying to rob liberal women of their ability to be heterosexual and wear dresses?
I loved that message in this movie. Do I think that they knew that that was a conservative message, that it's important to engage and embrace your femininity? Not really. And so that's why it's so funny to watch these movies and say, I think that this is a message that they maybe weren't actually intending. But that's one of my favorite movies. It's a super fun rom-com, and I love it. The fourth movie on this list is 13 Going on 30. I also love this movie. This is a great movie. Jennifer Garner is so good in this movie, and she has really good chemistry with Mark Ruffalo. And the reason this movie is...
You know about Mark Ruffalo, right? I once saw Mark Ruffalo reading a speech from Eugene V. Debs. I mean, I get that his politics don't translate to the politics of the movie, but it's so funny that like conservatives are forced to like the products of people whose, politics they would despise. Like they can't, I mean, unless you want to keep watching Michael Bay movies for the rest of your life, I mean, or who's another conservative director or actor? Yeah, if you want to keep watching fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger movies for the rest of your life, there you go. He was a Republican governor. Then okay. Okay.
Accidentally conservative is that the main character realizes that her pursuit of fame and fashion and glory all comes secondary to love and marriage and being with the person that you love and growing a family. And I loved the idea that in the movie, when she thinks
Don't
that
give me
she's
another
30,
ad.
flirty, and thriving,
No.
Hi, I'm Michael
Frame.io.
Cioni. When Frame.io
I
launched
already skipped you.
and she is 13 and she sees what she would be like in the future, it is her with this boyfriend that she doesn't really like, and she's very much involved in the fashion industry, but she's willing to sell anyone down the river for it. And her 13-year-old self looks at her 30-year-old self and says, this isn't what I want. I would rather be honest and a good person and live with the man that I love than have this dream scenario of having this really high-powered job, but I'm betraying people all over the place and I don't have anyone that really cares about me. And that is a pretty conservative message that she ends up in the
So if you told me there's a movie about someone who is super ambitious, wants money, they want the fame, they want the glory, right? But they learn that there are things more meaningful than any of that. They learn that you cannot sacrifice your own personal character and personal integrity for greed. You learn that that there are more important things than profit to you, that personal relationships and your personal conduct will be more meaningful. That comes first. If I told you that that was the message of a story, right? Would you assume that was conservative? Does that sound conservative at all? No, of course not. That sounds like a Christmas Carol or any other terribly radical leftist propaganda that has been spewed out over the you know over the course of time. But because the person here, the main character, is a woman, and that she learns to put this second to her relationship with a man, that's what makes it conservative. That exactly is what makes it conservative here. You could just swap out any one of those two genders and the entire dynamic changes. This would not be on her list, right? Because the movie implicitly, at least kind of, she can look at that structure and say, oh, they want women to be wives first and then put their careers second. Not, oh, people should learn that greed is not the best motivator of their life, that it should not be first in a person's life, that there are more meaningful things. So that's how narrow minded people like Abby are. You can just literally switch out one of those genders and the entire thing changes. Like, liberals will look, I know you guys hate intersectionality, but they look at society as a whole and they see how everything is connected, how the biases against one group cannot be resolved without addressing, this problem over here, the economic problem, that you can't solve police brutality, right, without solving, you know, without solving this or that, right? Like, point is, we look at all these things as interconnected, and we say a rising tide raises all ships, and that we need to address all these problems. But with Abby, it's just switch out somebody in this formula from a man to a woman, and that ideology has been totally changed. It rests entirely on gender dynamics here, and that's what makes this so hilarious. This is not accidentally conservative. You're revealing yourself to be an accidental leftist when it comes to women and their careers. with men, I mean, I assume you would not have the same tone if it were about a man who learns about this message that greed is not good.
Really cute house with the really great guy than the high-rise apartment where she's alone and she is willing to betray the company she works for. And the image of them at the end moving into their house and falling down on the couch outside as they're unpacking and moving, it's just a very homey looking scene as compared to the beginning of the movie.
Liberals hate houses, y'all. Cannot state this enough. Cannot state this enough. Cannot stand houses.
Where she's in this very fancy job, but she doesn't really have the things that make life meaningful and important. And I like that contrast, and it is a very conservative idea that she has chosen the value and meaning of being with the man she loves, starting a family,
it's always going to come to that. The man, not the person she loves. The man she loves. That a woman learns that she will be most happiest being a wife to a man, to her husband. She's going to see the reason she keeps saying, the man, not just a person, the man, is because that is the fundamental factor here and why it's conservative to her and why she likes it so much.
In a community over the high-powered position that she always thought she wanted. And it's not that she doesn't have a job because we don't know what her job looks like. She may have a high-powered position because I'm not against that. But clearly what's most important to her is her family life. And that's why I always say that having a job and having a career is great. Doing something you love and you're passionate about, absolutely do it. It's important. But always having your priorities in order of this is really important and I'm really passionate about it and I'm going to earn and I'm going to do something I care about. But I also have a family and faith and a community and a husband that I want to.
Wait. Are they religious in the movie or are you just putting that in there? You didn't bring it up until now. I feel like you would have if they actually were explicitly religious.
Love and cherish. Having those things in both hands is going to give you a life with meaning. And the last movie I want to talk about today is While You Were Sleeping. How many of these movies have Sandra Bullock? She also was in The Blind Side, which is also very conservative, and that one is just kind of like out and out conservative. So that's
I agree. That one is out and out conservative. Again, if you guys just want to stay and be stuck with conservative media, all right, knock yourselves out. You get The Blind Side. Congrats.
kind of funny. Interesting. But While You Were Sleeping is a wonderful movie. I love that movie. Bill Pullman is in it, and the movie begins with her being a lonely woman. She doesn't have any friends. She doesn't have any family. She works every holiday because she doesn't have family to spend it with, and she ends up falling in love with this man, but before she falls in love with him, she falls in love with his family because it's just so warm and inviting. And that's an insight into a conservative truth, which is that family is so important. Communities are
I feel like I missed something. She falls in love with Bill Pullman's family first? Because she meets them first? Is that what you said?
ends up falling in love with this man, but before she falls in love with him, she falls in love with his family because it's just so warm and inviting. And that's an insight into a conservative truth, which is
Why did she fall in love with his family first? I mean, she likes them, or... I mean, when you say falling in love, I mean, you're talking about like a real bond there, right? Like, she forms that close of a bond with the guy's family before the guy himself. How does that... I haven't seen the movie. Maybe it makes total sense when you see it. But still, I mean, I guess that's conservative. I mean, it just sounds like, oh, she was alone before, and now, I mean, she's not alone. She has people who love her and support her. Really not an anti-liberal thing, at least.
is that family is so important. Communities are so important. Living alone is not going to give you joy or give you happiness or give you meaning. And having people around you...
No, not Free again.
Hey, it's Michelle from Frame
Get out of here.
that take care of you and that you can take care of. That's the stuff that life is made of. And so when she realizes that this family is what she fell in love with, it's a funny scene at the end of the movie that I'm giggling at. It's very emotional and also accidentally conservative. The fact is that she is embracing family, saying, I want this. I want a family. I want a community. I want...
Liking families is the standard for conservatism. Okay, I have a family. I have not gotten rid of my family or left my family in any way. I guess I am accidentally conservative.
a family. I want a community. I want a husband, and I don't want to be alone anymore. And of course,
Aha, there's the thing. She wants Sandra Bullock wants a husband, specifically. Specifically. That's the way that she's actually going to find fulfillment in her life, is by getting a husband. I mean, this is coming down to semantics, but I also feel like her entire ideology here is coming down to these what should be trivial things. Like, I get the feeling if Sandra Bullock were gay in this movie and she, had the exact same character arc, but it was through a getting a wife rather than a husband, would this wind up on Abby's list? Same thing about family and how community is great and everything. By the way, the thing about community and thinking that's like a conservative value. Take the word community, right, and put it up against the word communism, and you might see a similarity in how those two words are spelled. The left actually value the concept of communities quite highly. It's just that we believe in egalitarian communities that also emphasize individualistic, traits. We don't believe that a community has to be with people who conform to the same model of family, the same aesthetic, the same ideology. We believe that a community can be made up of very diverse people, but who are brought together by a shared sense of, responsibility to each other, a shared sense of commitment to a greater, cause and a purpose.
Beginning of the movie, it is slightly different in the sense that she's not choosing a very high-powered position over family or anything like that. But what it is that she has learned the value of family and has remembered why it's so important. And now we can see that in the future for her character, she'll probably be very, very close with her family and be very involved in her community and have a family of her own because she knows how important it is and how much meaning it will bring her own life. So I really love this movie. It is so much fun to watch. Totally recommend it, and it's great for the holiday season. If this is something that you haven't seen before, go out, rent it. What am I talking about? We don't have places to rent it. Blockbuster? No. Go on Netflix, stream it. I don't know.
Well, if it's not streaming, you're going to have to rent it from iTunes, Amazon Prime. Yeah.
I feel like I just really dated myself by saying that. And it is just a beautiful, beautiful movie. A lot of holiday movies tend to have conservative messages, maybe without even meaning to. And this is definitely one of them. But that's it for my list today of chick flicks that have an accidentally conservative message. Let me know in the comments, what are your favorite chick flicks that maybe have a similar kind of vibe that you like watching because it doesn't feel like, oh, I would never do that thing that this main character is doing, but instead it's more, oh, this is a character I can really relate to. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Please subscribe to my channel and blog if you haven't already. Head over to my Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook and follow me there. Hit that notification bell to get notified of all my new videos. Hit that like button. Please head over to classicallyabby.locals.com if you'd like to support my channel, see more of this content, and be part of our community. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!
Keep forgetting she does opera. Being an opera singer is not a personality. Being a wife and an opera singer, those are not personality traits. Oh man. Okay, guys. So we have learned here that conservatism means it means liking families, liking relationships instead of profit, instead of money. It's being anti-greed. Conservatism is not getting dick even if you're on death's door. No dick. And it's also the belief that sex will lead to feelings with another person. So I hope you guys see what I mean here about, like, they actually do. When I say they, I mean Abby does represent at least a school of thought here in conservatism. I imagine Ben would be in total agreement with this, and he is, like, sadly a thought leader. So yes, I do mean they, as in, people who agree with Abby see media and see, I guess, every kind of cultural idea through the prism of liberal versus conservative, right? I would never watch these movies and, and say, well, that has to be liberal, like I know I made the case that some of these were liberal, but just because she was making the case that it was the opposite, and when you're forced to think about it, it's like, well, if I have to choose one or the other, liberal or conservative, it definitely aligns more with liberalism, at least how I've always defined it for myself. So that was really interesting, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you like that. Yeah, subscribe if you want, like the video if you want, comment if you want. God. Yeah, and let me know if you would like to see more reaction videos in the future. This is Gabe signing out.